Okay, we're ready to start here. I hope everybody can hear me. I'd like to introduce myself for tonight. My name's Ron Huff. I'm a veteran of the United States Navy, 63 to 67. Also, Butler County Veteran of the Year this year. Thank you. This time, I'd also like to take time to introduce the Gold Star family members present tonight. With us tonight, we have the family of Thomas Russell Kistner. Thank you. And we have the family of Joseph George Kuzik. And the family of Edward Francis Heasley. And the family of Ronald Eugene Garwing. God bless you, folks. Yeah, I'm sorry. We've got David Kern's Gold Star family, and his son was killed in Iraq. This time I'd like to also honor and thank all the veterans, especially our Vietnam veterans here tonight. And honor and thank the people from the VA Medical Center in their attendance. And especially we'll take time because this is a service for the Northern Butler County veterans, which are going to do from each county or each section of the county throughout these programs this week. But I'd like to honor the Northern Butler County veterans. And a special salute to the VA security and the Butler Township Police and law enforcement. These gentlemen are here to protect this wall too. I'd like to welcome everybody here. This is the American Veterans Tribute Traveling Wall. It's a mission of honor, respect, remembrance of our fallen and serving men and women in uniform. For those without means to travel to our great national memorial. Give it the respect that it has earned, and remember that this entire area is a non-smoking area. I'd like to give you some facts about the wall. Remember, this wall was only 80% of the one in Washington, D.C. A Vietnam veteran come up with the idea of the memorial. Jan Sergich was an infantry corporal who wanted a place to commemorate all those who served and sacrificed their lives in Vietnam. The wall was designed by a college student. Her name is Mela Ling Lang, and she was an undergraduate of Yale University at the time. There are more than 1,400 entries submitted to a national design committee, and a panel of 8 anonymous judges chose Lynn's design. It took less than 8 months to build the memorial. The site's groundbreaking took place on March 26, 1982, and the wall was completed by late October. The wall was dedicated on November 13, 1982. The wall was made of black granite from Bangalore, India. The country is one of only 3 places in the world, Sweden and South Africa being the other 2, where you can get such a large amount of black granite. No federal funds were needed to create this memorial. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund raised nearly $9 million through private contributions from corporations, foundations, unions, veterans, civic organizations, and more than 275,000 individual Americans also contributed. There are currently 58,479 names listed on the wall. Those who died in action are denoted by a diamond. Those who are missing in action, PIAs and POWs and others, are denoted with a cross. And the death of one who was previously missing in action is confirmed. A diamond is superimposed over the cross. If the missing were to return alive, which has never occurred to date, the cross is circumscribed by a circle. Names are listed in chronological order, starting at the apex on the panel 1E in 1959, though it was later discovered the first casualties of military advisors were killed by artillery fire in 1957. Moving day by day to the end of the eastern wall at panel 70E, which ended on May 25, 1968. Starting again at panel 770W at the end of the western wall, which completed the list on May 25, 1968, and returning to the apex at panel 1W in 1975. More than half the people listed on the wall were under age 22. The largest age group is made up of 19-year-olds. The name of 8 women appear on the wall. They were nurses taking care of the wounded. The number killed on the first day in Vietnam was 997. By comparison, 1,448 soldiers were killed on their last day in Vietnam. The state with the highest casualty rates per capita belongs to West Virginia. The names of 711 West Virginians appear on the wall. The day with the most casualties was January 31st, 1968, where 245 lives were lost that day. This was the first day of the 10 offensive. Now, if you'd all please rise if you're capable, remove your hats or headgear, and join in me and sing, if you can, as the Karn City High School Band plays our national anthem. Thank you, Karn City Band. Please remain standing and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance, United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. This time, at this time we'll have an invocation by Bob Ripper, chaplain, American Legion Post 642 in Chicora, and past Butler County Veteran of the Year. Bob?
May we bow our heads in prayer. Almighty God, creator of all that has been, that is, and still to come, be with us as we pray for our deceased brothers, sisters, and their families and fellow comrades. Let us never forget the MIA and POW from unaccounted for from all the wars and conflicts. Bless the Butler County American Legion Riders and all individuals and organizations who have worked so hard to bring the tribute wall to Butler. Please be vigilant with all you who attend and walk on these now hallowed grounds. Guide our hearts and our minds as we work together for you, our God, and our country. Amen.
Thank you, Bob. We'll now have the POW MIA Remembrance Service by Fred Callahan, past Commander, Shakur American Legion Post 642, and John Kaler, Commander, Shakur American Legion Post 642.
Those who have served and those currently serving in the uniformed service of the United States are ever mindful that the sweetness of enduring peace has always been tainted by the bitterness of personal sacrifice. We are compelled to never forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, there are others who are enduring and may still be enduring the agony of pain, deprivation, and imprisonment. Before we begin our activity, we pause to realize our POWs and MIAs. We call attention to this small table which occupies a place of dignity and honor. It is set for one, symbolizing the fact that the members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as POWs and MIAs. We call these comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families, so we join together to pay homage tribute to them and to bear witness to their continued absence. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner shown against his suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose in the vase signifies the blood they may have shed, sacrificed to endure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the families and friends of our missing comrades who kept faith while awaiting their return. The red ribbon on the vase represents red ribbons worn on the lapels of thousands who demanded with unyielding determination a proper account of our comrades who are not among us. A slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors to the open arms of their grateful nation. The American flag reminds us that many of them may never return and have paid the supreme sacrifice to ensure our freedom. Let us pray to the Supreme Commander that all our comrades will soon be back with our ranks. Let us remember and never forget their sacrifice. May God forever watch over them and protect them and their families.
Thank you, Fred and John. Well, now the folding of the flag by Navy veterans Jerry Cogley, past Butler High School teacher, and David Kearns, past Armstrong County Veteran of the Year. And reading of the folds by Fred Callahan, past Commander, Shakur American Legion 642.
Fold 1. The 13 stripes represent the original 13 states: Denver, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maryland, South Carolina, New Hampshire, Virginia, New York, North Carolina, and Rhode Island. Fold 2. The 50 stars represent the 50 United States of America. Fold 3. I know not what cause my offer you may take, but for me, give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry. Fold 4. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldiers and the sunshine patriots will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country, but he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Thomas Paine. Fold 5. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Declaration of Independence. Fold 6. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. United States Constitution. Fold 7. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of people peacefully to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The First Amendment. Fold 8. The basis of our political system is the right of people to make and to alter their contributions of government. George Washington. Fold 9. My God, how little my countrymen know what precious blessings they are in possession of, and which no other people on earth enjoy. Thomas Jefferson. Fold 9. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Abraham Lincoln. Fold 11. Give me your tired, your poor, your humbled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuge of your teeming shores. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Emma Lazarus. Inscription on the Statue of Liberty. Fold 12. Ask not what you can do for your country, but what you can do for your country. John Kennedy. At this time, our chaplain will insert 3 spent rounds for honor, country, and duty. When the flag is completely folded, the stars are utmost, reminding us of our national motto, "In God we trust." After the flag is completely folded and tucked in, it takes on the appearance of a cocked hat, ever reminding us of the soldiers who served under George Washington and the sailors and Marines who served under Captain John Paul Jones, who were followed by their comrades in the armed forces of the United States. preserving for us the rights, privileges, and freedoms we enjoy today.
Thank you, Jerry, Dave, Fred, and Bob. At this time, we're going to have the reading of the 43 gentlemen that were killed in action in Vietnam by Fred Callahan, past commander, American Legion Post 642, John Kaler, commander, American Legion Post 642, and a bell by Richard Shoemaker, adjutant, American Legion Post 642.
We have 43 names on this list from Butler County. First name, Thomas Eugene Sizowitz.
Douglas Vernon Andre.
Charles Frederick Setzenfan.
Ellen George Lane.
William Frederick Winters.
Frances Claire Rummel.
Luciano Paul Plesikov.
James Thomas Steitner.
Harold Eugene Moore.
Robert Charles Lindenberg.
Ronald Eugene Gerwig.
Raymond Patrick Link.
William L.G. Lesnick.
Clyde Walter Klingman-Smith.
Joseph George Kuzik.
Glenn Robert Wiley.
Thomas Russell Kistner.
Martin W. Walusky III.
Stephen William Ziegler.
John James McElroy.
Paul Stasko Jr.
Joseph Clarence Doyle.
Gary Dwayne Reed.
Walter Anthony Ciccadini.
William Roger Campbell.
Charles William Seth.
Donald Ray Burnside.
Walter Edward Barnes.
Richard Dennis Coyle.
Gary Richard George.
Edward Thomas Keskowski.
Gerald Wayne Shakely.
Richard Harry Williams.
James Robert Couch.
Robert Lee Glasgow.
Paul Edward Angert.
James Albert Bailey.
Thomas Ralph Bierlein.
Kenneth Allen Barger.
David Hughes Smith.
Merrill Dwayne Brown.
Edward Francis Heasley.
And Martin McClellan Miller.
Thank you, gentlemen. Fred, Dave, and Rich. At this time, it takes me great pride to introduce John Robb, our guest speaker for tonight. John was born and raised in Garden City, Pennsylvania, attended the Fairview Township Joint High School. As a lieutenant, he was a flight leader and platoon leader with a highly decorated 229th Assault Helicopter Battalion in the U.S. Army Elite 1st Cavalry Division in Vietnam, where he flew an incredible 650 missions. He saw action in 1968 and 1969. During the height of the war, John led combat assaults in both 1st Corps and 3rd Corps, as well as flying Special Forces and Marine reconnaissance missions in Laos and North Vietnam. After his active military service, he joined the Fairfax County, Virginia Police Department. He was assigned as a patrol officer, major crimes detective, and was asked to form and command the police helicopter unit. John retired as Deputy of Chief of Police. After retiring, he provided law enforcement consulting services to the federal government and many police departments throughout the United States and the Virgin Islands. John married his former high school sweetheart, Sally Christie, 48 years ago. She is from Bruin. John was also the author of the book North Flag, about his experience as a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. John?
Because it was a long time ago, I have to wear my glasses. But, good evening. Can you all hear me okay here? Okay, great. Those of you who don't want to hear me can leave the tent right now. Do that. You're very privileged to have the Vietnam Wall here. This is a great experience. I want to thank the committee and those who invited me to come up here. It's an honor that I could not refuse to come back. But I'm also gratified to see my old alma mater, Garden City Band, here tonight playing. Butler County is a very special place, and I think many of you realize that. I grew up in Karn City and Shakora going to the Memorial Day parades and watching the Veterans March, the VFW and the American Legion and all the veterans. I wore my uniform in Butler County during the Vietnam War, both before I went overseas and after I came back. And as many as you recall, it wasn't fashionable and it was even dangerous to wear a uniform at that time. I never was bothered in Butler County. I never worried about it. And I knew that if anybody ever had the temerity to walk up to me and start a problem, that some veteran or some veteran's father or his brother was going to walk over and stand beside me. So Butler County has always honored their veterans. You were proud of us when we came home. And I don't think I speak only for myself when I say that the veterans are very, very proud of the people of Butler County. And it's a wonderful place to grow up and a wonderful place to live. You are among heroes here today, not just those whose names are out on the wall, but all the veterans who have ever served in the military at any time in any of the wars or in between. Not because of some specific heroic act that they performed, although certainly many in this crowd have done that, but because of their selfless sacrifice in their service to their country. Anyone that puts on the uniform knows that at any time, well, that's my first crash for the evening, knows that any time they might be called upon to give their lives. It's a very special occasion. And the wall out here is not a tribute to the Vietnam War or any war. It's a tribute to those men and women who gave their lives in the service of their country. It's the sacrifice of a generation. I've been asked to come here tonight and give you some of my experiences. What was it like to be a helicopter pilot in Vietnam? And I will try to do that. As was said, I was a helicopter pilot in the 229th Assault Helicopter Battalion in the 1st Cavalry Division. I flew the UH-1H Huey helicopter. Those were basically the troop helicopters. I was platoon leader and aircraft commander and the flight leader. I led the combat assaults. I flew 650 missions on the books, and probably many more because we were limited on the number of flight hours we were allowed to fly each month. But the war still went on, so we did what we needed to do. Over 2.5 million veterans served in country during Vietnam, and there are over 58,000 names on the wall. Almost 12,000 helicopters were deployed in Vietnam, and over 5,000 of those helicopters were destroyed in combat. There are almost 5,000 air crewmen's names on the wall. That's 8.5% of all the names on the wall belong to the helicopter troops. Combat consists of a series of violent acts that I couldn't begin to explain to you even if I wanted to, and I don't. It's a very unique club to get into, and you have to pay your dues. My experiences are not unique. Every veteran, especially those that served in wartime, have their own stories. They have the things that they did and the things they remember. I do remember that when I was commissioned an officer and when I was sent to flight school, that the government said I was too young to drink and I was too young to vote. But then they sent me to Vietnam and told me I could fly a multi-million-dollar helicopter, I could lead troops in combat, and I could make life or death decisions every single day. I had just turned 21 years old. My goal in life was to be 22 years old. If you saw the movie We Were Soldiers, Once and Young with Mel Gibson, maybe some of the women remember that. That helicopter unit in that movie was my unit. That was the 229th Assault Helicopter Battalion, and that is what we did for a living in Vietnam. As hard as it is for some of the younger generation to realize, we didn't have email or texting or Twitter in those days. We had mail, paper mail. It was 2 weeks each direction. Incoming. It was 2 weeks each way for letters to go back and forth. Every helicopter pilot remembers the first combat mission they flew. They remember the first time they were shot at, and they remember the first time their helicopter was hit. I fortunately got all that out of the way on my very first mission, and they sent me into North Vietnam to do it. It was supposed to be an orientation flight. We were supposed to go up and just take a look at the area and, see what everything was. The guy came through the tent, said, "Let's go, we're going on a mission, grab your pistol, your helmet," and I grabbed my pistol and helmet and I went. We're in a helicopter and we're flying north. And I'm just looking around, basically looking out the window going, "Oh, look at the pretty colors," because I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going or anything. But we kept flying north, and I was only stationed 20 miles south of the DMZ. So I had a pretty good idea if I kept flying north where I was going to end up. And when we crossed the DMZ, it's something you can't forget, because the DMZ was a stretch of earth that was bombed and rocketed and mortared and shelled until it was just desolate. And we passed over the DMZ, and we kept flying north for about half an hour. And we came to a hover over a little hole in the trees in the jungle, about 75 feet high. And 3 Americans in combat fatigues came running out of the woods. And my crew chief threw a big rope out the door down to these guys, and they tied themselves onto the end of the rope. And we started lifting them up out of the jungle. And about halfway up, a bunch of guys in black uniforms with AK-47s came running out and started shooting. And I realized they were shooting at me, because I could see the tracers going up beside my door and in front of the windshield, and then I could feel the hits on the helicopter. You get a little tink sound you can never forget when those bullets go through the magnesium on a helicopter. My machine gunners are shooting back, the infantry guys on the end of the rope are shooting back, and we lifted them up out of the jungle and took off flying south as fast as we could go, with these guys trailing behind us on a 100-foot rope. And they were pretty happy to be back there, actually. We landed in a little field a couple miles where we could put them in a helicopter, and it turns out they were a Marine recon team that had been discovered in North Vietnam, and they were running for their lives. I told the aircraft commander that if this was an orientation mission, I could pass on the combat missions, thank you very much. Our job was to support the infantry. That was what helicopters were in Vietnam for. We took the infantry guys to the field, we supplied them while they were there, and we brought them back, dead or alive. They came home with us. No matter how bad the situation was, with guys on the ground call, we went. And that was just the bottom line. We flew all kinds of missions. In the 1st Cavalry, everything was done by helicopter. So you probably can't come up with anything that can be done with a helicopter, or you think can be done with a helicopter, that we haven't done. We flew numbers of types of missions, combat assaults, medevacs, whatever. And I'll try to give you an idea of some of the missions just to give you some flavor of what it was all about. Our bread and butter was the combat assaults. And if you've ever watched any World War II movies where they hit the beach in Omaha and did all that, the landing craft going in, with the battleships firing and the planes bombing and all that, that's what we did, except instead of landing craft, we used helicopters. We would fly 5 or 6 helicopters, Hueys in a formation, usually rotor blades 10 to 20 feet apart, very tight formations to keep our gun control. We'd have 2 Cobra gunships on each side. And we would have probably 6 or 7 infantrymen on board. And when our goal was to hit an LZ within 10 seconds, plus or minus, of the time that we were supposed to, because there was artillery going in, there were planes bombing. On 1 minute from final landing, the last artillery shell would hit, and it was free fire zone after that. And our machine guns would open up, and our Cobras would start making their gun runs. The infantry guys would be standing out on the skids, holding on to the helicopter with one hand, M16s in the other, and waiting. Because if it was a cold LZ, if nobody was shooting at you, the infantry guys would ride in on the skids till about 3 feet off the ground, and then they would step off. If it was a hot LZ and people started shooting at you, they were leaving the helicopter about 15, 20 feet, because they didn't want to be on board anymore. It's always nicer to be behind a bush. So, very tight control. We did medevacs. We were not a medevac unit, but when somebody was injured, the closest helicopter went. You had to get the guys back. Typical mission, maybe not so typical, but one of the missions I flew, we were actually doing combat assaults, and we went into this small LZ. It wasn't very wide, 75 to 100 yards wide, but it was several hundred yards long. Trees about 100 feet. And we dropped it over the end of the trees, and as we came in, the infantry bailed off the right side, and the tree line on the left side just erupted and fired. The NVA was all in there in force. So the infantry got off, we got out, didn't take any serious damage, another day at the office. About a minute away, the unit commander called us and said that one of his guys had been shot in the head, and if we didn't get him out, he wasn't going to make it. So I volunteered to go back. And my plan was, as all good plans are, was to drop in over the trees the same way he'd gone in. They would throw this wounded guy on board the helicopter, and I would go back up over the trees and go home. It worked fine until I actually got into the LZ. Because when I came in, no wounded guy came out. Now, I'm hovering up and down in the middle of this LZ, looking for this wounded guy. I've got a couple hundred bad guys on the left guy shooting at me. All the good guys on the right side are shooting past, trying not to hit me. I've been in the LZ probably for 20 or 30 seconds, which may not seem like much time to you, but it seemed like a lot of time to me. And so it was time to get out when we saw a guy come staggering out of the tree line. Head was all bloody and a bandage. So we got over to him real quick, threw him on the helicopter. But I knew that if I tried to go back up over the trees, they were going to be expecting that, and I wasn't going to make it. So my plan was to pick the aircraft up to a hover 3 feet off the ground and go as fast as I could do down the length of that LZ. And if I got up enough speed, it's just like all you guys that hunt birds and you shoot behind them all the time. That's what I was hoping the bad guys were going to do, was shoot behind my helicopter. And it was actually working out pretty good until about halfway down the LZ, when, and this will be a recurring theme you'll hear throughout this little talk, a guy in a black uniform with an AK-47 stepped out and started pulling the trigger. He was dead ahead of me. And when he started pulling the trigger, things inside my helicopter started breaking all over the place. He was shooting the gauges out of the dash, he was punching holes through my windshield. And I didn't think we were going to make it. So I quickly gave the controls to my co-pilot, and I grabbed my .45 and stuck it in my left hand and leaned out the door. So we're flying down the LZ. I'm shooting at this little guy with my .45. He's shooting back at me with an AK-47, which I didn't really think was a fair fight. But we passed each other so closely that I thought that my pistol barrel was going to hit his barrel. We got out of the LZ fine, not too much damage, dropped the wounded guy off. When we got back to base, I went to open my door. And as I turned around, there was a bullet sticking halfway out of the door frame up against the left side of my helmet. And I don't know why it didn't go through. I always kind of thought that maybe some of the guys from the old Armco steel around here put a little extra in that door because they knew I was going to need it. So I do appreciate that if you did. We did resupply missions, both day and night. The night missions were usually the worst because you would go out at night, the infantry would be in a little LZ surrounded by enemy fire. They usually weren't too hard to find because there was a lot of tracers going around, and we would hover into the LZs to pick them up. Days could be worse. I got shot down by one bullet once, coming out of a daytime secure, clear LZ in the Michelin rubber plantation, because you guys have to have tires for the pickups, and I understand that. I was coming out, I just picked up above the trees, I was probably 30 feet in the air, and the reoccurring theme, the little guy in a black uniform with an AK-47 stepped out, full automatic, and shot me down the back. I knew we were hit hard right away. And we were just going over the jungle, and we were going to get down, and there was no place to go, and I saw this little hole. So I dumped the aircraft into it. So we got down fine, and of course we jumped out and spread around the helicopter to defend the aircraft because we thought the guys that just shot us down were going to come pay us a visit. And they didn't, so after about 20 minutes we got up and started checking the aircraft. Now we had gone down so fast we hadn't had a time to make a radio call or anything. Nobody knew where we were at, and nobody even knew we were down. So there we are in the jungle, and we tore the cowling off the helicopter, the four of us, and we found that they had shot the tail rotor drive shaft in half. So we weren't going to fly. I knew there was a base about 2 miles away that probably had the part, so I sent my crew chief and my pilot to walk through the jungle to pick up this part. And the gunner and I stayed there and guarded the aircraft until they got back. And they had the part, and if I remember correctly, we had 2 crescent wrenches and a screwdriver. So we tore the helicopter apart, and then we tried to put it back together again with a new part. And we lifted up and flew it back to base. And it actually worked out pretty good. We flew 100 killer missions. Not sure who decided on these missions. I'd like to meet them someday. Basically, you took your helicopter and you went out at night and you turned on all the lights and you had a big spotlight on the side and you flew low, maybe 500 feet and 50 miles an hour, and your goal was to get shot at. Because when you got shot at, then you knew where they were at, and you could either tell somebody or you could shoot back or whatever you thought was appropriate action. I was working down along the Cambodian border one night, and there's the Cambodian border, and there's a river, and there's a road. And we'd had several actions that night. We made contact 3 or 4 times in a couple of little gunfights. And we'd run into a 51 caliber, and one of my Cobra gunships had been hit and had to go back. So we're going down along this road. You know, some things just sometimes tell you that things aren't quite right. So for some reason, I reached up and I hit the switch and I turned off all the lights in the helicopter. And I leaned back and I told him to turn the searchlight off. And probably 10 or 15 seconds later, the world just erupted. There were so many tracers coming up, and the muzzle flashers are so bright. I could look down on the ground, probably an area not much bigger than this area here, and see hundreds of enemy soldiers. And they were all shooting at my helicopter. The tracers were so thick that you couldn't stick your hand through them, literally. We tried to go to the right, we couldn't go to the right. We tried to go to the left, we couldn't go to the left. We just rolled the nose over and went through. We took hits, and my crew chief got it, but we came out of it, we didn't get shot down. And we got them back. The Cobra gunships just nosed over and punched off all the rockets and all their miniguns. They figured there were probably in excess of 800 guys shooting at our helicopter. An infantry company commander a couple miles away saw my helicopter silhouetted against the sky and knew we were not coming out of it, and he called a shot down. I know kind of what it's like to be a 10-point buck on the opening day. So, the NVA were not the only danger. In one 21-day period, I was shot at 19 of the 21 days. And out of the 19 days, I was hit 17 days. My nickname, understandably, was Magnet Ass. The NVA were not the only danger. We flew overloaded all the time. We would fly helicopters that literally could not lift off the ground. We would bounce them down the runway or down the field until we bounced them high enough that they wouldn't come back down. And then we would go out to where we were going and hope we burned off enough fuel, and we would just make basically crash landings, to drop off whatever we had to drop off. I flew in the mountains into Laos, 7,000, 8,000 foot mountains coming out of the valleys with the clouds right down on the ground where you couldn't see beyond the instrument panel, and just on radar vectors where they would say, on my mark, turn 3 degrees to the right, and you would. And then they'd say, on my mark, turn 15 degrees to the left. And you do that for an hour and a half coming out of the mountains. I flew down roads when the weather was so bad we couldn't get up in the air, and we would put the rotor blades in the clouds and just pick the aircraft up enough that we could fly down the road, because the infantry guys would be out in the field. And in the monsoons and things like that, sometimes wouldn't eat for 3 or 4 days because we couldn't get food into them, and they were out there. And so to try to get food to these guys, we would fly down the roads 10 miles out in the middle of nowhere. When we went out at night, nobody had landing lights when we went out into the field. And the infantry guys would not stand up with a flashlight when people were shooting at them. The standard landing light in Vietnam, what we usually got was an infantry guy laying down behind a log with his arm up in the air with a Zippo lighter. I landed with a Zippo lighter more times than I can ever count. And they don't give out much light. I ran out of fuel in a helicopter once. People seem to enjoy that story for some reason. In my defense, I knew I was going to run out of fuel. We just come back from a combat assault low on fuel, and we got a call that there was a 3-man Army recon team that had been discovered and were running for their lives. And if we didn't go get them, there was nobody else close and they weren't coming out. So I dropped out of the flight and we went to get these guys. We picked them up without any trouble. They were pretty fast runners. And we were coming back, but the gauge had been sitting on empty for a long time. Now the infantry guys are sitting in the back. We just pulled them out of the jungle. They're running for their lives. I didn't have the heart to tell them that they really weren't going home. So they're sitting in the back, they're relaxing. And I'd never run out of gas in a helicopter before. I didn't know it was like my old 54 Ford, you know, that would kind of chug and bang a little bit and then sputter, you know. And when it happened, it was very anticlimactic. We were flying along and everything was going great, and then it suddenly got quiet. It got really, really quiet. And we weren't flying anymore. And fortunately, we were over a dry rice paddy area, and we came down and we popped it over a rice paddy dike and we slid it in a cloud of dust and got it down, which was the second time I'd been out in the middle of nowhere by myself. But right after we landed, I saw a Cobra gunship come down right on the ground, and it was still one of the prettiest sights I've ever seen. And we got a Chinook helicopter in and put straps on our helicopter and lifted it out. Because no good cavalryman ever leaves his horse in the field. One of those things. We did special forces, mostly in Laos. We would fly 2 aircraft, 2 Hueys, with about 6 men on board. We would always go out to the Ho Chi Minh Trail or sometimes way further into Laos. And we would drop the special forces guys off. And after we dropped them off, we would fly out of sight. And then we would just start flying circles in the air to make sure they were okay. And if they weren't okay, they would always get on the radio and tell us. And they'd really want us to come back and get them. So we would fly back, and we hoped they got to the LZ pickup zone before the bad guys did. And we would pull them out. What we really, really hated is when they called us on the radio and they were whispering. Because when they were whispering, we knew they were probably within 20, 30 feet of the enemy soldiers. And we knew when we went back in that we were just going to get shot to pieces. And that's just generally the way it worked out. That's how Joe Kuzik from Bruin was killed. Team was caught in there, helicopters tried to get him out, several helicopters shot down, and the last helicopter got in and picked Joe and his teammate up, and the helicopter was coming off the ground and got shot down, and Joe was killed. Joe was MIA. We were never able to bring Joe home. But there were 2 other guys that are kind of special to me. There were 2 KIAs that I did bring home that I think may not have made it without me. We were out on a little LZ up near the Cambodian border, and a scout helicopter came in, and you could tell this aircraft was just shot to pieces. No windshield, I mean, just holes all through it. And it was flying really erratic. When they landed, both the pilot and the crew chief were really severely injured. And we found out that they had been out with another scout and run into a 51 caliber, which is a big machine gun. And the other aircraft had been shot down and burst into flames. So we knew that the crew had to be dead, but we also knew we had to go get them. So we flew back. We had the 6 flights from the 6 aircraft, and we put infantry guys on board, and we went back to get them. We knew we were going to take fire. Going into the LZ, we took fire, but not too bad. And my guys jumped off. Everybody's searching for the bodies, and they can't find them. The grass is about this high. So we were starting to take pretty heavy fire, and everybody was taking hits, so it was time to go. And we called the flight up, and just as I picked the aircraft up, the rotor washer, my rotor blades, bent the grass down, and I saw one of the guys there. So I called the flight up and said, no, yes, everybody's staying here. Take the flight out. I'll stay. We'll get the guys. So the flight took off. I landed. My infantry guys jumped off, put both bodies on board. So now we pick up. We're the only aircraft in the LZ, and we're taking lots and lots of fire. So I accelerated down the LZ, trying to go as fast as I could go again. And I was lucky because I had a machine gun on each side of my helicopter, and I had 3 infantry guys on each side, and they all had M60 machine guns. So I had 4 M60 machine guns on each side of my aircraft. We were like a gunship going down the LZ. And we were going down, and I saw a little group of trees on the right, maybe 20 feet high, and I figured I would break over the top of those trees and throw the aim off and get away. Well, I did that. As I rolled it up, not much higher than this tent, I rolled up right over top of the 51 caliber that had shot down the other crew. And I think I surprised them a little bit because they expected me to come out, but the barrel was up. And I remember the aircraft, we were looking straight down, and I was looking out the back door, and I saw the guys, and I saw the barrel coming up. And I really don't think I even pressed the button on the intercom. But I just started yelling, shoot, 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 shoot. And all 4 guys opened up. And all I could see was bodies gone down in birds of dust. And we killed them all and kept going. And we made it out of there. But I didn't know the names of those 2 guys until recently because I was doing some research. And so I haven't seen their names on the wall tonight, but I will tonight because I don't think they've been found otherwise. I remember coming home. We flew through a storm into Pittsburgh Airport, and the wings were going up and down, and the lightning was crashing, and I was really annoyed that I was going to get killed on the runway of Pittsburgh Airport. Thought it was unjust. Well, we landed safely, and my mother and father and my fiancée Sally were waiting inside the terminal, and I walked in. And of course, my mother and Sally came running over, and there was a lot of hugging and crying and stuff. And my father was just standing off the side. He was a veteran of World War II in Europe. And he was standing off to the side, and when the women were all done, I walked over to him, and he stuck his hand out, and we shook hands. And my war was over, and I was home. Thank you.
Thank you, John. What a story. And that ain't half the story. He's been married 48 years, too. That really brings it down to life when you hear it from firsthand. The way he told, you can almost picture yourself being there right beside him. Okay, we're about ready now. We're gonna have a candlelight ceremony. What I need everybody here to move to the wall and spread out. And you'll be given glow candles, glow sticks, and we'll notify you when to light them. And I got my paper here. Many things are written about the wall, but not everything of being on the other side, revealing the wall's emotion and healing powers. Now remember that the walk we all began in Vietnam, and know that it will be completed. These words are spoken by those names appears on the wall. We ask for silence as we hear from the other side. The American Legion Rider, Leroy Berman. Burnlap. Bunyan. Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, we'd all take time to proceed to the wall now.
I tore my whole house apart trying to find that damn thing because I wanted to send those stuff on it. Good job.
Thank you.
Escort the wall in? Oh, yeah. Would you up here and just, now I started over.
Gary, you want everybody to face the wall, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, did you come all the way up here? I didn't see you.
Everybody please face the wall. The voices will be coming from inside the wall.
Did John take off? Did you see him?
No, well, there's Sally right there. I think
Mike,
John's
sure,
standing
you
right
please come to the
there.
tent. Everybody have a glow stick, or those that have them, please light them. We're waiting to get some music right now, so just be patient with us. falling. John Bunyan will now do the other side of the wall.
At first, there was no place for us to go until someone put up that black granite wall. Now, every day and night, my brothers and sisters wait to see the many people from places afar bow in front of this wall. Many stop briefly and many stop for hours, and some come on a regular basis. At first it was hard, not that it's getting any easier, but it seems that many of the attitudes towards the Vietnam War we were involved in have changed. I can only pray that the ones on the other side have learned something and more walls by touching my name engraved upon it. The tears aren't necessary, but are hard even now for me to hold back. Don't feel guilty for not being with me, my brothers. This was my destiny, as it is yours, to be on that side of the wall. Touch the wall, my brothers, so that we can share the memories that we had. I have learned to put the bad memories aside and remember only the pleasant times we had together. Tell our other brothers out there to come and visit me, not to say goodbye, but to say hello, and to be together again, even for a short time, and to ease the pain of the loss that we still share. Today, an irresistible and loving call summoned me to the wall. As I approached, I can see an elderly lady, and as I get closer, I recognize her. It's my mother. As much as I have looked forward to this day, I have also dreaded it, because I don't know what reaction I would have. Next to her, I suddenly see my wife, and immediately think how hard it must be for her to come here to this place today. And my mind floods with the pleasant memories of 50 years ago. There is a young man in a military uniform standing with his arm around her. My God, he has to be my son. Looking at him trying to be a man without a tear in his eye, I yearn to tell him how proud I am. Seeing him stand tall, straight, and proud in his uniform. Mother comes closer to the wall and touches it, and I feel the soft and gentle touch I have not felt in so many years. Dad has crossed to this side of the wall, and through our touch, I tried to convey to her that Dad is doing fine and is no longer suffering or feeling pain. I see my wife's courage building as she sees Mother touch the wall, and she approaches and lays her hand on my waiting hand. All the emotions, feelings, and memories of 5 decades past flash between our touch. And I tell her that it's all right. Carry on with your life and don't worry about me. I can see as I look into her eyes that she hears, and a big burden has been lifted from her on wings of understanding. I watch as they lay flowers and other memories of my past. My lucky charm that was taken from me and sent to her by my CO. A tattered and worn teddy bear that I can barely remember having as I grew up as a child. And several medals that I earned and were presented to my wife. One is the Combat Infantry Badge that I am very proud of. I had earned mine in the jungles of Vietnam. And I noticed that my son is also wearing this medal, and he had probably earned it in the deserts of Iraq. I can tell that they are preparing to leave, and I tried to take a mental picture of them together, because I don't know when I will see them again, and I wouldn't blame them if they were not to return, and can only thank them that I was not forgotten. My wife and mother near the wall for one final touch. And so many years of indecisions, fear, and sorrow are let go. As they turn to leave, I feel the tears that have not flown for so many years form as dewdrops on the other side of the wall. They slowly move away with only a glance over their shoulders. My son suddenly stops and slowly returns. He stands straight and proud in front of me and snaps a salute. Something draws him near the wall, and he puts his hand upon etched stone and touches my tears that have formed dewdrops on the face of the wall. And I can tell that he senses my presence and the pride and love I have for him. He falls to his knees and the tears flow from his eyes. And I try my best to reassure him that it's all right, and tears do not make him less of a man. As he moves back, wiping the tears from his eyes, he silently mouths, "God bless you, Dad. God bless you, son. We will meet someday, but in the meanwhile, go on your way. There is no hurry. There is no hurry at all." As I see them walk off in the distance, I yell out to them and everybody here today as loud as I can, "Thank you for remembering." And as the other side of the wall joins in, I notice that the U.S. flag, Old Glory, that so proudly flies in front of us every day, is flapping and standing proudly straight out in the wind. From our gathering numbers on this side, we shout out again and again and again, "Thank you for remembering."
That concludes our services for tonight. I'd like to take time and, wow, I think it touched everybody's heart like it touched mine tonight, because I got a different feeling about things.